Need for Speed Unbound is a true successor to Need for Speed the Underground series, and quite frankly, one of the best Need for Speed games built in recent memory. The team behind it is Criterion, and they're no secret to Need for Speeds as they have made a few in the past, but Need for Speed Unbound is for them returning to form and also kind of giving the fans what they wanted in a spiritual successor to the Need for Speed Underground series. I know I wanted a new Need for Speed Underground for years, as that was my favorite in the franchise, and Need for Speed Unbound does not disappoint. Upon creating your character, which is the first thing you'll do, you'll then select one of 3 vehicles to start with, and away you go. This is basically how it starts the campaign, and you go along through the campaign's main story. Now, the characters and the story itself throughout the campaign is nothing special in my opinion. Obviously, it's a racing game, so that is never really at the forefront, but there is a story and there are 1 or 2 interesting characters, but for the most part, nothing special. The thing that will stand out most for people when they look at this game is the hybrid mix of real 3D models and cel shading. Cel shading comes in the form of the effects of the vehicles as well as the character models within the game, while the world and cars are on the realistic side. Now, personally, for me, the cel shaded effect in this game grew on me. At first, I didn't like it, but over time, it did grow on me and it did fit the Need for Speed Underground style, as well as help give the game its own identity. So when you see this game being played, you can tell it's Need for Speed and not Forza Horizon 5. Of course, this is a car game, and a car game wouldn't be a car game if it didn't have cars and customization. Thankfully, Need for Speed Unbound has a lot of customization, both in terms of aesthetics as well as performance. There's a lot to do here. The only thing that is lacking is for the hardcore racing fan. No, you cannot tune your cars in the terms of tuning gear ratios and individual suspension settings, etc. No, you have a basic slider that determines whether or not how much you want the car to drift and or grip, depending on your style. You can also raise and lower the car, but nothing's particular. So for hardcore racing fans, this is a Need for Speed game. It is an arcade racer, and you may find a lack of depth in that area. But overall, this is a fun game and a well-built game. One of the things that I liked about this game is the level of polish. In my playthrough on PC, the game ran like a dream, max settings, 80 frames per second, without breaking a sweat. The only issue I had was 1 or 2 crashes, but most of these crashes occurred after I did an NVIDIA driver update, so I'm unsure if it was the game itself or if it was a driver update that was causing the excessive crashes that happened throughout my playthrough. Of course, Need for Speed also has a multiplayer side of it. Now, the multiplayer and single player side of the game is kept separate. So for the multiplayer, you have your own in-game currency, you have to create your own character, and you start with an entirely new car. The only good thing is that the cars that you unlock through the campaign carry over into your garage for your multiplayer. So if you do what I did, which was play the campaign first and foremost, you'll flip over to multiplayer and see that you have some cars in your garage already, the ones that you have unlocked throughout your campaign playthrough. But overall, the way the game plays is it's very simple. You have your campaign, you have your multiplayer. Your multiplayer is similar to that of Forza Horizon. You jump in, you pick a race, you gamble money, you buy upgrades, you meet other players, and you rinse and repeat. Whereas the single player portion has a narrative campaign that you have to follow through. So those are the 2 differences between the 2 modes within the game, but that's it. That's all there is within terms of modes and how you fire up the game. But overall, I felt that this Need for Speed was really good. One of the things that I loved about it as well was the musical score. The music that they chose, it's an urban soundtrack, and to me, I jived with everything that came at me from a soundtrack perspective. All of the songs fit the game very well. I liked the soundtrack. It was done very well, and I'm not a big fan of urban music to begin with, but I dig the soundtrack. I dig the aesthetics. And that's one of the things that is one of the cons of Need for Speed Unbound. Not everybody's going to jive with the music. Not everybody's going to jive with the mix of realism and cel shaded. It's just the way it works. Some people will like it, some people won't. The one common theme I feel is that the cel shading specifically, that aspect it grows on people. Most people don't like it at first, and then they like it over time. Of course, being a Need for Speed game, you also have cops, and the cops in this game, unlike a previous Need for Speed title, these cops are not on rails. So cops, they chase you when you have heat, and they'll chase you in the middle of a race. So you have to race other racers and fight the cops at the same time. After you finish a race, if you are being chased by the cops, the chase will continue, and then you have to escape the cops. Obviously, the higher your heat meter is, the more the cops are on you, and if you do get caught, you lose the money that that you've gambled throughout your session. You only collect your money when you return back to your garage, and then whatever you've earned in that session, you collect. But one of the other negative issues that I've had with this game, and when I played it, comes in the form of the game's difficulty. I find the difficulty is weird at times, where sometimes you will have the highest rated car in the race, and yet you're racing well, but the enemy is just flying ahead of you. Or other times you'll hit your spray, they're not hitting your spray, and it feels like they stick to you, like there's a tethering, an invisible tether. It doesn't happen all the time, but there were times where I felt like, man, it doesn't matter how fast I go, this guy's on my ass, and it's like glued to me. Or they're ahead of me and I just can't gain any ground despite how well I'm driving. So the difficulty is a little wonky, especially with the cops as well, because once you get above 3 heats, so you get to the 4 heat level, man, it's nonstop cop after cop after cop. It's like, man, I can't even breathe. And you can have cop chases that last upwards of 15-20 minutes, because just as you're about to escape, another cop catches you and then the chase is on again. So, but that is typical of Need for Speed games, but I did find the difficulty can be annoying at times in these areas. But overall, I love my time in Need for Speed Unbound. I think Unbound is a great racing game. Everyone should give it a shot. If you're a fan of the Underground series, you should give it a shot. This game, to me, is the spiritual successor of the Underground series, one of my personal favorites, and I really love my time with it. Overall, I'm giving Need for Speed Unbound an 8 out of 10. This is Veteran Gamer, and I hope to see you guys next time.